Hey guys, Mr. Jarosinski here with another Media Center video tutorial. Today in this tutorial, we're going to be covering creating a project in Premiere. So where to save it, how to get your clips into Premiere, and what to do once you've got all your clips in Premiere and understanding your sequence settings and going from there. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Here I am logged in under Media Center, and let's go ahead and just open up Premiere. It's this guy right down here in your taskbar. And this will take us about 30 seconds to open. And while that's opening up, I've got some clips I already put on the video data drive under my folder here. I've got these fortune cookie clips, and here's some clips in right here, and we'll just be working with these today. There'll be another separate video that will cover importing your clips from your SD cards onto your video data drive. So here we've already have the clips. And we're going to go ahead and make a new project. So Premiere will start with this splash window. If for some reason you don't see this splash window, you can always go to File, New, Project, and that will get you to the same part. So New Project, and I'm going to give this a name. So I'm going to call this my last name, and I'm going to call this Fortune Cookie. Since that's the project I'm working on, you could call it your montage, your interview, any project name that you like here. And before we hit OK, we need to choose where we're saving this project. So we need to click this Browse button, and we need to browse to our video data folder. Remember, everything saved on these computers always saves to our video data D drive. And then we'll click into My folder here, and we'll call this, actually we already called it something, but we'll put this inside our Jonathan Jarosinski folder. So now this project can be found under My folder on the D drive. I don't need to worry about any settings here, so I can just hit OK. And now this will load up a new Premiere project. And the first thing you always want to do when you jump into Premiere is go under this Window button and then Workspaces, and go ahead and click Reset to Saved Layout with this editing window open. Reset to Saved Layout. And so you might have a floating program window here. You can place this onto your second display up above your computer here, just by dragging that up to the top. Be sure to turn on your display with this remote that's at each edit bay. That's your program window, so that's where you'll see all of your changes to your edits that you are making. So now we're inside of Premiere, and we're going to just start by importing some media. So over here is our project window, and you can always see your project window up here in the top left, or if it's not there, you can go under Window and make sure this project checkbox is selected. So go ahead and double-click in this area right here, Import Media. If you double-click there, now you're in the dialog box that lets you choose the clips you want to bring into Premiere. And so we have our fortune cookie clips here. So I'm on my D drive, my folder where I already imported my clips. And so I will go to fortune cookie, and here's all my clips right here. So I can use Control-A as a keyboard shortcut to select all the clips I have. Or I can also drag with my mouse, click and drag to highlight all of those clips. I'm going to import those by clicking Open. And as you can see, each of those will open up right here. And I can double click on any of these, and I can go over to my preview window. Here we have some credits rolling. Here we've got some clips.
And I'll put the other one back up there, ready?
So I can see each of these clips. I can scrub around in my time, and I can start editing. Now one thing to note is our frame rate of our clips that we already have here. So now each of these clips you imported has specific properties related to it. And we can see these properties under our project bin right here. So we have our frame rate, we have how long the clips are, we have our resolution, and these are important to note when you guys start your projects. So each of your projects that you will have for your classes will have specific requirements of the resolution, the type of file you're exporting as, and things like that, the frame rate, and you want to make sure you match those settings. So of course, if I'm shooting a 1920 by 1080 video, I want to be sure my camera settings are set up to record as 1920 by 1080. And you can always take something that is large and downsize it to something that is smaller. So a 720 clip is 1280 by 720, but you can change all that in post-production if you need to. But I recommend shooting at what you need to export as. So when we import our clips, they all have specific settings. So I'm going to match these settings. And you can do that a couple of ways. You can right-click on a clip, and you can click on this New Sequence from Clip. And when we do that, you can see it puts this clip into our timeline here for editing. So here's our timeline. And now this sequence, if we go up to our sequence settings, will match the same settings that our recorded clip has. So here we have 1280 by 720 square pixels, which means they're 16 by 9. And we can see our audio samples and things like that. If I want to make a sequence with my own settings, I can go up to File and click New Sequence. Now this little drop down right here gives us a ton of options. And we always tell people, when in doubt, use our AVC HD presets. You can drop all these down. I'm going to choose 720p. And here we have our 24 frames per second. So 720, progressive, 24 frames per second. If we had anything interlaced, anything for your EUTV classes, TV workshop, that's all 1080i at 60 frames. 1080i 60 right there. So I'm going to use 720p today, and we're going to do 24 frames, and I'm going to give this sequence a name. So I'm just going to call this Fortune Cookie. There we go. And now I can start dragging my clips into my sequence, and it will match those settings. So now in this next little chunk here, we're going to talk about if we recorded clips at 1920 by 1080 or 1080p, and we're editing in a 720p sequence. So we're taking a larger clip and we're going to make it smaller in our sequence. And that can be useful because we can rechange the size and the framing of all of our clips, and we can do a little bit more post-production editing as opposed to just using those large clips as we have them. So if I'm exporting for a 720p project, but I've got 1920 by 1080p clips, so here I have a sequence that is 1280 by 720, that's already set up. And so here I have a clip that is 1920 by 1080. And of course we can see those settings by just scrolling right in our project window here. So here's 1920 by 1080. So if I drag this into my sequence, you'll get this little warning that pops up that says, this clip does not match the sequence settings. So meaning the clip and the sequence have different sizes and frame rates. And so you have two options here. You can change the sequence settings to match the clip that you're trying to import. So instead of 720, it's going to make it 1080. Or I can keep the existing settings. So I can keep my sequence settings of 720p and still use my 1080p clip. So I'm going to keep my existing settings. But now note the difference in my frame size here. So here's my preview window. So here's 1920 by 1080 in my clip. And over here in my program window, this is my 720p program window. So notice that it's zoomed in and it's cropped. And so this can be useful because I can have a zoomed in shot, but this also can mess up your framing. So no, our headroom's a little bit off. We're not quite following rule of thirds exactly here. So I can scale this one of two ways. I can click on my clip, go over here to Effect Controls, drop down this Motion tab, and here's this Scale parameter. So I can scale this back. Obviously, if you go too far, you're going to leave black bars around your video, so you don't want to do that. So you could scale this up till there's no black. Or if you leave this at 100, you can always right-click on the clip in your sequence, and you can click on Scale to Frame Size. So you'll see that option right here, Scale to Frame Size. And this will automatically jump your clip to the proper size in between your 1280 and your 1920 clips that you have. So these are good ways to combat that. And again, this is useful because I can take this 1920 by 1080 clip and I could zoom this in, and I can change my framing here. As you can see, I can move this around. So I can get my rule of thirds exactly on. I can also change my rotation. So say you have a shot that's just a little bit crooked. I can also rotate that so I get my vertical lines perfectly vertical in my clip, and things like that. Also very, very helpful. All right, again, in this video, we just covered everything from opening a Premiere project, importing your clips, setting your sequence settings, and saving your project. Now at the end of every project, be sure you always save before you export. So save your project. If you need to save this into another location, you can always go to File, Save As, and you could plug in your flash drive. So here I've got a flash drive, and I could save my Premiere file there. So I have my own copy I can always reference on my own computer and just have a backup. Backups are always a good idea. So I can click Save, and now it's saved onto my flash drive from there. That's it for this video tutorial. We'll see you next time.